Hi everyone, my name is Evan, and my group consisted of Dan, myself, Kyman, Ryan, and Ben. We worked with HandsOn Central Ohio in order to create our tool. So HandsOn Central Ohio is kind of a distribution center that also supports people that are in poverty with different resources that they offer. So the problem that HandsOn Ohio came to us with is that they've been noticing an increase in population in Columbus, especially in low-income areas, so that would increase their demand. So they wanted assistance with their distribution system to kind of see how they could allocate their resources a little better. They also had ideas of expanding to new locations, so they wanted a tool that could analyze any new locations. So we were able to come up with these solutions with our heat map that can kind of show the trends and the gaps in their service. We also created a function to evaluate any new service locations or any new service addresses that they may have that they want to expand to. And we also created an interactive dashboard that includes multiple methods for users to use to kind of visualize a lot about the data and kind of analyze anything about the data. So here's our tool. As you can see the three heat maps that we created. So here is 2015, 2016, 2017. So these are based on the different service levels of each location. So they're split into 20 by 20 grids, and the scoring system is based on the service request frequency to how many service locations each grid has. So as you can see, kind of Prairie Township probably has a high number of service requests for not that many service locations. So if you take maybe an address from one of these locations, I think the two we are looking at are going to be 301 East 17th. So if you follow my cursor, it's kind of in this area, maybe around over here and over here in all three maps. And then 4600 International Gateway, which is going to be kind of over here if you follow my cursor again, over here in this area, and then over here in this area. So we're going to be evaluating that using our tool to kind of see how the data changes, and I'll kind of explain the tool, the function that we're using to evaluate the address. So I'll plug in the first one, 301 East 17th Avenue. And I did a little bit of a typo. So as you can see, the data will improve by 11.11%. So what that means is using our scoring system of the number of the service frequency and the number of service locations, you can see kind of the score. So if there's a high score in one of these areas, it'll show up as very red, whereas if there's a low score, it'll show up as more blue or not as red, obviously. So we have actually a number that you can see in our, if we unhide maybe 2015, you can see kind of the scoring system that we have. It's all kind of being scored, and each one is being scored. So we're seeing how much this data actually changes. So I'll hide that again. So we're taking the new data versus the old data of that scoring system. And so obviously when I showed you where 301 East 17th is, I'll show you again with my cursor, there probably shouldn't be very much change. So 11.11% is not very much for the data. So I'll show you the next address. And as you can see, it's going to be 50%, so it would obviously be a lot better for them to add a location at 4600 International Gateway. So what that's going to happen, so it's going to improve the overall distance traveled by 50%, so their score, it's all going to go down by about 50%. So their new scores are 50% lower than their old scores. And so now I'm going to hand it off to Dan, and he's going to explain a little bit more about the interactive dashboard.
Thank you, Evan. The interactive dashboard is a place the user can go to help them make decisions on what services should be expanded and where they should be expanded. This is done early in the process and is done by allowing them to interact with some of the variables in their operation. By changing or selecting different variables, the user can visualize exactly how each of the services, regions, or service sites comprise their operations. The interactive dashboard can help the user to create a preliminary list of areas for future potential locations. Then they can use that list with the site evaluation tool in the final steps of their decision. One thing we had to assume here is that the demand of HandsOn Ohio services is equal to the amount of calls. So let's get into the use of it. And right here you can see these slicers over here are some of the variables that we can use and adjust throughout our use to see different things. One thing you'll want to do is make sure that multi-select is on. And right here you can see if I were to select 2016, selected 2016, it's a little slow. There we go. And everything over here is adjusting. You can see 2015, 2016, 2017 are all here plotted out. And in addition to that, all of these top tens are changing with all of this. So you can see we have top tens for service sites, services requested, and caller zip codes. So with that, you can look in more depth at each of these individual rankings and look at the top 10 service sites. I want to see what actually goes into this Broad Street United church, I believe. So I can click right here and brings me to this page, and it highlights the Broad Street United Methodist Church, and it shows me exactly what goes into their calls, what services they provided. And then I just click right here and go back to the dashboard. And then the other thing is we included a slicer for food pantries just because you'll see when I click it here, all of the data changes very dramatically. Food pantries kind of dominate the data as 90.8% of total calls. So obviously HandsOn Ohio already knows this is their biggest issue, but we wanted to allow them to be able to look at the data and look at other things that maybe they would like to expand that they don't really get to see as much because it's kind of hidden down below here. You can't really see much when the food pantries are included. Last thing that we have here is this map. Right here, it is a map of Franklin County with all of the zip codes mapped out. Now, I will select just 2015 and 2016, and I guess I'll keep food pantries on. Then I'm going to click this update map button here, and it'll plot all of the color locations onto this map. Takes a little bit of time, but it'll really help the user visualize and see exactly where some problem points are so that later on they can go to the heat map, see how it changed over time, all on one screen, and then they can use the site evaluation tool to really fine-tune their decision and make sure that what they're doing is the best. And there we go. All right, so these two tools together, this interactive dashboard and the heat map address evaluation, they can be very, very helpful to HandsOn Ohio if you use them together. It's very helpful to see all 3 years side to side, and it's also useful to see exactly what is going into each of those problem areas. Why there are more calls in one area than another area. You can't really make a decision without knowing the full scope. Thank you. That is our HandsOn Central Ohio Service Location Analysis tool. Thank you.